This is the United States. All these lines signify the boundaries of each state. There are 50. Today, I'm going to tell you which ones are the 10 best going into 2026. Like, where should you live? What are your best options? These are the 10 best options. We do this list every year. We rank the states by their stats, crime, economy, real estate, schools, healthcare, and a few other stats, and we see who shakes out to be the best. Between number 2 and number 1, I will give you a few that almost made the list. Everyone asks for that every year. In the comments section, I would love to hear which states you feel are the best and why. A few years back, we did a follow-up video based on your guys' input. Alright, we're going to see who made the top 10 for 2026. Get it? Let's take a look. Number 10. Washington area 71,301 SQ. College educated 50.3%. Capital Olympia GDP $854.7 billion. Washington, the only state named after a U.S. president, gained its statehood in 1889. The evergreen state is an outdoor enthusiast's dream with its geological diversity, including mountains, deserts, rainforests, and a Pacific coastline. It offers the Olympic Mountains, the San Juan Islands, and Mount Rainier, one of the nation's highest peaks in the lower 48. In addition to its scenic treasures, Washington is known as the birthplace of Starbucks coffee, the Boeing Company, and Microsoft Corporation. Because of its coastal location, Washington is a key exporter for the U.S., particularly for transportation equipment. Additionally, Washington is crucial to the nation's food and agriculture industry, producing many of the country's apples, and also leading in milk, potato, and cattle production. The aerospace industry and the military and defense sector are major economic drivers in the state. Seattle, marked by its iconic Space Needle, which rests high above the rest of the city and lights up the night sky, is by far the state's most populous city. Number 9. Massachusetts, area 10,554 SQ. College educated 55.1%. Capital Boston, GDP $780.7 billion. Population 7,136,171. Median income $54,953. Separatists fleeing religious persecution in England arrived aboard the Mayflower at Plymouth Harbor in 1620. Another colony called the Massachusetts Bay Colony, a group of English Puritans, later arrived and eventually absorbed Plymouth to form one royal colony. In 1770, the colonists began defying Great Britain's rule, resulting in the Boston Massacre, when British soldiers fired on a crowd of civilians outside the Boston Customs House. In 1773, the resistance reached new heights when colonists dressed as Native Americans threw chests of tea into Boston Harbor in an outcry against British taxation. This Boston Tea Party sparked the American Revolution, and Massachusetts' John Hancock was the first founding father to sign the Declaration of Independence. Massachusetts, the second of the 13 original colonies, became the sixth state in the Union in February 1788. Today, the fields of education and health services employ the most people in Massachusetts. Another top industry is manufacturing, especially computer and electronic products. With a balance of historical destinations and picturesque beaches at Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard, the tourism industry also is a major economic powerhouse. Legislatively, Massachusetts has paved the way for other states. It led the way in universal health care coverage, with a plan enacted in 2006 that inspired former President Barack Obama's Affordable Care Act. It was also the first state to legalize gay marriage and the second to pass discrimination laws for individuals who identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual. Number 8. South Dakota, area 77,116 SQ. College educated 45.4%. Capital Pierre, GDP $75.2 billion. Population 924,669. Median income $41,959. What is now South Dakota was among the Northern Plains land claimed by the French and sold to the U.S. in the 1803 Louisiana Purchase. Soon after, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark explored the Missouri River stretch of present-day South Dakota, meeting Yankton and Lakota Sioux tribes along the way. In 1861, Yankton was named the capital of the Dakota Territory, which included today's South and North Dakota and much of Wyoming and Montana. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie granted the Sioux the Black Hills and land in South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. The U.S. seized the land 9 years later, forcing Native Americans to resettle on smaller, dispersed reservations. North and South Dakota were admitted as the 39th and 40th states in 1889. Because of controversy over which state should be signed into the Union first, President Benjamin Harrison did not record the order. Gutzon Borglum began sculpting Mount Rushmore National Memorial in 1927. He planned to carve George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore Roosevelt from head to waist, but died in 1941 before completion. With his death and impending American involvement in World War II, the memorial was declared completed. In 1980, more than a century after the U.S. broke the Treaty of Fort Laramie and seized Sioux land, the Supreme Court ruled that the government had taken the land illegally and awarded $120.5 million to the Lakota Sioux, who refused to accept payment and instead demanded the territory be returned. Today, agriculture generates much of the state's economic activity. South Dakota also has a growing tourism industry, with Mount Rushmore and the Badlands National Park among visitor favorites. Number 7, Vermont, area 9,615 sq. College educated 52.5%, capital Montpelier, GDP $45.7 billion, population 648,493, median income $46,413. Vermont's verdant valleys and mountains, bordered by Canada to the north, New York to the west, Massachusetts to the south, and New Hampshire to the east, were settled by both the British and French early in the 18th century. After the French were defeated in the French and Indian War, Vermonters declared their independence from England separately from the original 13 colonies, though the Continental Congress did not recognize this separation. Among Vermont's most famous contributions to the American Revolution is the Green Mountain Boys, a band of patriots led by Ethan Allen who formed a militia to fight in the war and later became some of the founding fathers of the state. After 14 years as a self-declared independent republic, Vermont was admitted to the Union as the 14th state in 1791. The sweetest product of Vermont's forests is its renowned maple syrup, the purest labeled Grade A. Vermont is one of the country's biggest producers of the sweetener. A dairy-producing state, its most famous brand is Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream, which was founded in the northern city of Burlington, situated on Lake Champlain, in 1978. Another homegrown Vermont product made founder Robert Stiller a billionaire Green Mountain Coffee Roasters, made popular nationally in pods for Keurig coffee makers. Number 6, Florida, area 71,404 sq. College educated 45%. Capital Tallahassee, GDP $1.7 trillion, population 23,372,215. Florida attained statehood in 1845. Yet not until a pair of railroad barons built lines down the Atlantic and Gulf coasts in the late 1800s and early 1900s did the state take off, spurring the phenomenal growth of what's now the third most populous state. Henry Flagler arrived aboard the first train to Key West, the southernmost point of the U.S., in 1912, marking completion of his Florida East Coast Railway, linking the East Coast from north to south. In his path, he left grand hotels, the Hotel Ponce de Leon in St. Augustine, and the Breakers and Royal Poinciana in what became known as Palm Beach. Another Henry businessman and steamship owner, Henry Plant, pushed rail lines down Florida's west coast. With millions of visitors each year to its beaches, major amusement parks centered around Orlando and cruise ships departing from ports on both coasts, tourism is a major contributor to Florida's gross domestic product. The state's agriculture industry is also robust, with Florida groves producing many of the country's oranges and a winter vegetable industry that makes agriculture a year-round enterprise. Tourism, which pays a sizable share of the state's sales tax, also has enabled Florida to remain among the states without a personal income tax, adding to the allure of the nation's leading retirement haven. The state has 1,350 miles of coastline and a landmass of 53,630 square miles. It's 792 miles by land from Pensacola in the far northwestern panhandle to Key West at the end of the archipelago that stretches south of Miami, and along the way there is no natural elevation higher than 345 feet on a ridge of the panhandle. No state has a lower peak. With several large cities, the state also has a sizable system of state universities and community colleges. The University of Florida in Gainesville and Florida State Univ. Number 5, Nebraska, area 77,347 sq. College educated 46.7%. Capital Lincoln, GDP $185.4 billion, population 2,005,465, median income $42,456. Nebraska is a major agricultural state, and its many cattle ranches provide for the state's trademark corn-fed beef. The Cornhusker State counts corn production as a leading crop, and its golden triangle of corn, livestock, and ethanol production drives its industry. A major urban center in the state is Omaha, home to Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest men. Stock in his Berkshire Hathaway holding company, managing a wide array of companies, has made many Americans wealthy over 50 years. Before its admission to the Union as the 37th state in 1867, the Nebraska Territory had been sparsely settled. As railroads pushed west, waves of homesteaders started arriving in 1860. Omaha had been the territorial capital, but the seat of government was moved to Lancaster, later renamed Lincoln following the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln in 1865. The state's name is derived from Oto Indian words translated as flat water, referring to the Platte River that flows through the state. The Oto had immigrated to the Central Plains from the east just ahead of the first European settlers. The principal Siouan people in the territory during the first half of the 1700s were the Omaha and Ponca in the northeast and Oto in the lower Platte Valley. As Europeans arrived, they forged trading alliances, exchanging beaver and other skins for merchandise. Eventually, the Oto were forced along with Missouri tribe members to accept a reservation in Gage County in 1854. By 1881, settlers acquired that land too and moved the indigenous settlers to Oklahoma. Number 4. Minnesota. Area 86,943 sq. College educated 51.9%. Capital St. Paul, GDP $500.9 billion. Population 5,793,151. Median income $50,279. The U.S. gained the land now known as Minnesota starting in the late 1700s through the Treaty of Paris, the Louisiana Purchase and negotiations with the Dakota Indians and other tribes who had long inhabited the land. The start of Minnesota's statehood, gained in 1858, was marked by hostile relations between the settlers and the Dakota over land treaties and mistreatment by traders. Only a few years later, Minnesota was the first state to offer its troops to the Union in the Civil War, though it was the youngest state. As the northernmost territory in the 48 contiguous states, Minnesota is known for its frigid conditions. The cold weather explains ice hockey's popularity in Minnesota and makes it a perfect destination for cross-country skiing, ice fishing, and other snow sports. The state is also known for its many lakes, which eventually flow into the Hudson Bay, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Gulf of Mexico. The headwaters of the Mississippi River start in northern Lake Itasca. The Dakota fittingly named the land Minnesota, meaning sky-tinted water. The state's nickname as the land of 10,000 lakes is an understatement. The state has more than 11,500. The Mayo Clinic, a nonprofit health organization, is headquartered in Rochester and is among the state's top employers. Manufacturing and retail trade are two other major industries in Minnesota, which houses many Fortune 500 companies such as United Health Group, Target, 3M, and General Mills. Number 3. Idaho. Area 83,569 sq. College educated 41.6%. Capital Boise, GDP $128.1 billion. Population 2,001,619. Median income $40,098. Idaho is as well known for its potatoes, trout, and precious stones as it is for its unspoiled, rugged landscapes. Snowy mountains, deep valleys, lakes, and rivers cover the Gem State, which is twice the size of the 6 New England states combined. A Rocky Mountain state, Idaho is bordered by Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and a small portion of Canada's British Columbia. Though Spaniards began exploring the Northwest in 1592, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark were likely the first European Americans to enter Idaho in 1805. During the gold rush of the mid-1800s, miners flocked to California and Idaho, where they found gold, copper, and lead. In the mid-19th century, Union and Confederate supporters fleeing the Civil War went west to Idaho, and Mormons flocked to the region to avoid persecution. Today, more Mormons live in Idaho than in almost any other state. President Abraham Lincoln signed the bill creating the Idaho Territory in 1863, which included much of the land that would become Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. In 1868, modern Idaho was carved from the territory, and in 1890 it became the 43rd state. Idaho's economy shifted away from mining toward agriculture after it achieved statehood. Some former mining towns began to host resorts, such as the Sun Valley Ski Resort, which opened in 1936. Number 2. New Hampshire. Area 9,350 sq. College educated 50.4%. Capital Concord. GDP $121.2 billion. Population 1,409,032. Median income $51,450. New Hampshire may be one of the smallest states, but it traditionally has played an outsized role in the nation's greatest task, election of the president. For decades, the Granite State was first in line for the quadrennial presidential primary elections. Political careers were made, salvaged and busted in this first-in-the-nation primary, though its actual impact may be overstated, as many New Hampshire primary winners have failed to win the White House. The state's natural beauty stands out more for its valleys, rivers, lakes and mountains than its mere 13 miles of Atlantic Ocean coastline. Its highest peak, Mount Washington, stands at 6,288 feet in the White Mountains, and Lake Winnipesaukee is its best-known inland resort. Among the 13 original colonies, New Hampshire was the 9th to ratify the U.S. Constitution at statehood in 1788. Historically, New Hampshire's economy depended heavily on paper mills fed by its forests and grain mills powered by its rivers. With the decline of millwork in the 20th century, New Hampshire turned to manufacturing for a time. Today, the old mills and warehouses lining the Merrimack in Manchester have gone high-tech. Smart manufacturing and high-tech industries account for much of the state's economy today, much of this concentrated along the seacoast and Merrimack and Upper Valleys. Number 1, Utah. Area 84,898 sq. College educated 48.1%. Capital Salt Lake City. GDP $300.9 billion. Population 3,503,613. Median income $42,385. Utah was dubbed Deseret by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who settled this remote western realm in the mid-1800s, fleeing religious discrimination in the East. With the outbreak of the Mexican-American War, several hundred members formed what became known as the Mormon Battalion, which marched from Kansas to San Diego from 1846 to 1847, forging a wagon route across the deep Southwest. They moved to Mexico until the war's end, returning in 1848 to the place they hoped to make the state of Deseret, a name drawing on the symbol of community found in a honey beehive in the Book of Mormon. By 1850, with a population of more than 11,000, church leaders chose members to head their settlements, and through 1900, the Mormons founded 500 communities in Utah and neighboring states. On May 10, 1869, the first transcontinental railroad was established at Promontory Summit in the Utah Territory, where the Union and Central Pacific Railroads met. As gold and silver were discovered in the mountains, Congress named the territory Utah after local Native Americans. The Utah Territory was carved up, with some forming Nevada, some added to Colorado, and some to Wyoming. Utah became the 45th state in 1896. Utah's mountains, high plateaus and deserts, containing the largest saltwater lake in the Western Hemisphere, at the state capital of Salt Lake City, are bordered by Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona at right angles. The Four Corners are the only such arrangement in the U.S. The state is known for its skiing, with the mountains near Salt Lake City collecting abundant snowfall, as well as for the Sundance Film Festival, one of the world's premier independent film festivals, staged for years each January in Park City before its planned move to Colorado in 2027. Alright, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.